Welcome, everybody, to the Old Gold Show with you as always. I'm co-manager over at Hammer and Rails, Andrew Ledman.
And I'm Casey Bartley over at Boiler Upload Rivals Network.
And we're coming to you after Purdue's double-digit loss on the road to unranked Nebraska. Purdue goes down 72-88. They weren't the only ranked team to lose in recent days, which we're going to talk about in the second half here. But Casey, 88-72 is your final. Purdue loses by 16 points. Got out of hand a couple times there. Purdue clawed their way back. What exactly did this Nebraska team do to really put Purdue in such a bad position?
It's kind of annoying that Fred Hoiberg was so bad in the NBA because I think it's just like saturated my mindset.
Yeah, they've underestimated him now.
Right, of who he is as a basketball coach, because it's clear like he's put a good roster together. He was kind of back before at Iowa State when he was coaching. He was kind of ahead of the world of college basketball and grabbing recruits. Like that's always been his thing for rosters. And now obviously that's easier than ever to do. And he's put together a good roster. The number one thing Nebraska did was make shots.
Yeah. I mean, when you shoot 60% from three, you're going to win a lot of games. It would, unless you're shooting, just a few shots and you get close to 60% that way. If you're 3 for 5, maybe I could see you losing, but with the volume that they shot and you shoot 60%, I don't know how you lose that game.
Yeah, that was why it was a blowout. I think it's pretty safe to say Nebraska still outplayed them for the second year in a row. Purdue goes into Nebraska, and Nebraska has a defensive game plan that takes Edey out of it. Is that defensive game plan really reliant on the refs swallowing their whistle inside? Absolutely.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
Like there is supposed to be, I was just listening back and watching it again today, and Hummel said something that was like, the cylinder rule apparently doesn't exist in the post.
Right. Freedom of movement has been completely erased.
And I'm not going to say that's all Nebraska, but like a large part of keeping him out of good position was them just existing in his body.
Yeah.
And they got away with it. And Edey got in foul trouble at the other end. There was another game. Edey is not the happiest person after a loss. A lot of people aren't. But he gets real dark and quiet whenever the whistle.
Yeah, he gets quiet.
Goes in a way that really upsets him. And he was really quiet after that game.
Yeah.
You could tell that he wanted to have a tangent about the way it was called. But again, like I didn't think they would be able to keep him out of the post and stop the pick and roll. And they really did a good job. They just showed bodies. They didn't give Braden Smith that space. If there's anything to take away, like, oh, was this a blueprint how to beat Purdue? I think it's very clear at this point in the season. You can't drop back in the pick and roll. Whether you're scared of Edey beating you, whether you're afraid of everyone else getting open. If Braden Smith is comfortable and if he's able to get into that pull up, you're going to lose. So you really have to play the high variance game of hedge out, get onto him, try to force turnovers, make it hard on him. And that said, like, did you feel like Purdue's offense was really bad at the end of the game?
Oh, yeah. The end of the first half and the end of the second half. I mean, the last probably 4 to 5 minutes of each half, they just vanished almost entirely. And it's no coincidence that those were the periods when Nebraska had their big run. I mean, at the end of the first half, they went on a 13-0 run. Purdue was up 30-28, didn't score the rest of the half, went down at halftime 41-30. And you just can't have that. I mean, Purdue fought their way back into the game after a very bad start. And then to allow your opponent to go 13-0 into the locker room, my goodness, it was just a momentum killer. It was, I mean, I'm sure every Purdue fan watching the game just went from, a pretty high emotional of, oh my gosh, we came back after that terrible start. It's going to be fine now. We'll settle back in and we're going to win this game, to, oh my God, what are we doing? 13-0 run, and suddenly you're down 11 at half. That's just tough to swallow.
Yeah, they were really bad in the first half, for sure. Even though Gillis got 2 wide open 3-point looks.
Yeah.
It's one of those where if either of those falls, I think it feels a little different going into half. Um, but to me, it felt like they were bad at the end of the game too. But I went back and watched today, and really in that last 5 minutes, they got good looks. It was Smith operating the pick and roll. They were pretty patient. They moved the ball around the perimeter. They had a lot of open looks, and they just didn't make them,
Well,
which is
that's
concerning.
That's Purdue's problem. That's what happened last year. I mean,
Sometimes.
well, that's what happened last year in the
Right.
NCAA tournament. You know,
Well,
and you've heard Painter say it over and over again. You know, we got guys open looks. They just didn't make them. Is that a problem with our offense? No, I don't think so. You got to keep taking the open looks, and somebody's got to make the open looks. That's how you win basketball games. You get the ball in the basket, you score more points than your opponent.
right.
It's a lot more difficult than that, but you know, that's the basics.
It just felt worse to me in the moment, and
Oh
looking
yeah.
back, like their offense still operated late.
Yeah.
Smith was still decent late. He had that one really bad possession where he got off his feet like 4 different times in one possession. It was like, what are we doing? Come on.
I don't know. And maybe it's one of those things I would notice if I went back and rewatched the game today, but you just did this, so I'll ask you. Did it seem like everyone on Purdue had a real hard time hanging on to the ball? I mean,
not really. I mean, Gillis had his
like,
normal, I can't catch a pass that's right in my hands.
He does have about one of those. But then like Edie like missed the ball and it like hit him in the head.
That was weird. Like I don't know what that was, because it didn't even look like it was crazy physical compared to what
I didn't think so
it just
either.
hit him in the face.
Yeah, and I mean there were just terrible passes. The ball was going around the perimeter with like it's slipping out of one guy's hand, so they get rid of it. Slips out of his hand, they get rid of it again, and it just seemed like they were rushed, they were hurried, and maybe kudos. Yeah, pressing. Maybe kudos to Nebraska on their defense for that, but man, Purdue just looked out of sorts almost the entirety of this game, and it started right from the very beginning with Braden Smith, you know, committing just a turnover that made no sense right to start the game. I'm not even sure what he thought was going to be there, but it wasn't there.
Lance took credit for that one after the game.
Oh, did he?
He told us that he left him out to dry there. I don't know if the play call was like him to take it there and then start some action, would be my guess. And Braden thought he was turning to go there and didn't. Not a good look to start the game. It was a perfect metaphor for how the rest of the game went.
Right. Yeah.
But Purdue didn't do a good job passing the ball inside the Edie when they did get chances. I think it was a lot Purdue's offense not just doing the simple rotations. And I think that's the answer to even more than calling plays and getting stuff set up. If a team is going to be that aggressive, where they literally just abandoned one shooter, a lot of times it was Jones. Like, you just have to pivot the ball around. You have to get it to the other side, and you have to do it quickly. That's how you beat a defense. The ball has to move faster than the defense.
Yeah.
And Purdue didn't do a good job of that. I thought there were times where Lawyer was pressing. He was forcing some shots. Lawyer, there's probably a bigger conversation. Yeah.
He shot the ball well, but there was a lot of other deficiencies in his game.
Yeah, his turnovers were like absolute killers. And he was only 3 of 9 for the game. Like, not great.
Yeah, but I mean, 3 for 6 from deep, which that's what you want from a guy like him.
Yeah, but like you're gonna force mid range and you're gonna force some tough shots at the rim.
No,
was a shot clock.
I'm with you. I
thought he made bad decisions.
Yes,
he looked like someone who lacked a little, like he didn't know what he was doing or comfortable out there, which is not usually the way Lawyer plays.
Yeah, and he's had a streak of really good games. So to see him kind of revert to bad Lawyer was very frustrating. But he wasn't alone. I mean, everybody had moments where they did not look very good. Braden Smith, you know, really struggled, I think, to click in on the offense on this one. But then you look back and I mean, he still had 7 assists. ended up with 10 points, but he was only 3 of 8, 2 of 5 from deep, which, that's not bad. You'll live with that. But it just felt like he did not have a very good game. Watching it again today, did you feel like that? Or am I just exaggerating based on Purdue lost by 16, so burn it all to the ground? Everybody's terrible.
I thought his degree of difficulty was harder than anyone else. I thought Zach Edey was bad.
Yes, well, hold on. What do
Uh,
you mean by his degree of difficulty was harder?
just the way Nebraska was playing defense. They
Okay,
were like, if for Smith to get to 7 assists, he had to really work hard for it.
that's fair.
And he was kind of having to see like Gillis's last or second to last three in the first half was like a crazy skip pass all the way across the paint from Smith, one-handed. That was incredible. Smith makes enough of those where even the bad plays, you're just like, you got to put up with it. But there still seems to be defenses when they can throw length at him and when those hedges and attention do go to him, he hasn't figured out how to score yet.
Yeah.
Hasn't really gotten to the hoop effectively. I think some of his teammates need to help a little more. I think Lance Jones can do a little more. I thought he was placid in the first half. Just settled for threes a lot of times.
Yeah.
But no, I think this might be the first time in 2 years that you could say, and Zach Edey said it about himself over and over. Every question, I had to be better. He wasn't very good.
No.
The fouls or whatever, but when he was in there, airballed 2 hook shots. I haven't seen that very often.
No, I can't recall 2 of those in a game. Maybe his freshman year.
Yeah, it's so hard because like Purdue, like most teams, you want to be like balanced and accurate, and you want to use numbers and like things you saw. But like Purdue is such a field team. Like it feels more important that game felt bad. Like Purdue felt uncomfortable because that's the only explanation for a lot of Purdue's losses. Is just like this team, team that when they lose it, it doesn't matter that it's open shots. It doesn't matter this because it just feels off. And Nebraska has now twice in 2 years at their place been able to do that to them.
Yeah, well, and Purdue, of course, won last year in overtime. Yeah. So that one was tough as well. I want to ask you a question about Purdue's defense and what Northwestern was able to do. So 88 points, obviously an incredible performance by Northwestern. As I said, shot
Northwestern
60%,
or Nebraska?
Or Nebraska, geez. You lose games to teams that start with the letter N, you just get them all mixed up. So Nebraska was able to shoot 14 of 23 from three-point range. Now, obviously, pretty darn good. Is this a matter of Purdue's defense was bad on the perimeter? Because Nebraska hit a lot of difficult shots, a lot of really tough shots that they made. Tominaga hit a bunch where he had just a very quick release. He had a guy in his face, and it was just tough. So I get that. But is this a matter of Purdue's defense was just a half step slow, or is this a matter of, guys who don't normally hit threes for Nebraska hit them? Was this like Painter saying, we'll allow that guy to take the shot, and he just happened to hit him? What did you notice with Purdue's defense that allowed an just absolutely outrageous 14 of 23 from the three-point range?
Overall, I didn't think their perimeter defense was terrible. Lance Jones was, like I said, almost inside of Tominaga a couple times. And like he said after the game, like a couple of those, like he let him get a little loose, but like a lot of them, he couldn't have gotten closer. They would have called a foul.
Yeah. And then you're looking at a 4-point play.
Yeah. So I thought everywhere else they weren't very good. I thought Edey was really bad in the first half. Like, even if you're dropping, you still have to be aware of your guy. You can't. Caleb first had one where Mass just drove by him and got a layup. Mass did that on Edey a couple times. A couple of those hook shots were like, whatever, make them. Obviously, that Alec 3 in the corner, the backup big, like that's going to be a shot Purdue's going to give up. It just hurt. Wilcher is a good shooter, but a lot of those shots were tough. I thought Camden Heide came in and was really good off the bench.
He played a lot in this game. I think, 23 minutes, something like that?
Got the start in the second half. I mean, Lawyer was pretty much benched a couple times.
Yeah.
For Heide.
Yeah, and I mean, Kaufman Wren only got 15.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of connectivity on the defensive end for Purdue. So I don't think it was like an individual effort. It's just the team isn't swarming. It's not getting to the ball. It's not making things hard on guys a lot. And
When you say lack of connectivity, do you mean, I mean, they're not talking to each other, they're not communicating, or they don't understand each other's assignments? What are we talking about there?
a little bit all the above. So like Purdue has their rules on defense. There's certain things you're supposed to do in every scenario, and you have to do that because everyone else is basing their decision and where they're going to be based off of that. And whenever you see like a defender on an island or get blown by and there's no one there, that's not just one breakdown.
Right.
That's someone
Right.
getting in a bad spot and another person not being there because that person wasn't supposed to be in that spot. So a lot of the things are just like, yeah, and like talking helps that, but like it's kind of on a man to just like, you have to do the rules that we have. Like you have to be there. And it really never looked like Purdue's defense was making it as hard on Nebraska as it should have been. And there are questions, I think, about Edey. Just he's not he's still not quite a deterrent at the rim like you would want him to be all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can
Yeah.
almost see him not try to take a foul. And like if a guy can get into him, he's gonna get an angle at some point, probably. And it's just it's tough because I think it was another bad TKR game with him. TKR's numbers, he got a couple rebounds, but like,
Yeah. I mean, didn't take a single shot.
yeah, that's rough.
That's just bizarre. I mean, he did go to the free throw line. So I mean, he took a shot, but it didn't get recorded because of the foul. But
yeah, it's just the contributions from other people. Miles Colvin played 4 minutes, didn't do anything. Club Trillion out there, Club 4 Trillion.
4 trillion, yeah.
So Caleb First has been just disappointing.
Yeah, he hasn't really found himself. I can't think of maybe one game this year where he really asserted himself.
And Ethan Morton, like 10 minutes, played okay defense, but he let a
Yeah, I
couple
know.
go. Like
I don't know.
The depth of Purdue right now is not really showing itself. You can argue like Camden Heidi's playing well,
Yeah.
and he's about the only one. Like,
Well, Gillis.
yeah. At this point, it almost feels like with the way Gillis's body is and his back, Painter's never going to fully unleash him until maybe this tournament. And then
I mean, that's fine.
And then do you play him just as much as he can handle?
Probably.
Because
I mean, I would think so. He's really at this point, if you're looking at the bench, he's the best player off the bench. He's the only consistent contributor off the bench. And that's no knock on the rest of the bench, but guys like First have been up and down, mostly down. Miles Colvin is still young. He's still trying to find himself on this team. Camden Heidi is really on the rise. I would say, would be the second best player off the bench right now, but we've got to have something off that bench. But I mean, one thing you can say about the bench in this game, no turnovers from the guys coming off the bench. Every turnover was from a starter. 14, I believe, turnovers. Yeah, and every one of them was credited to a starter.
That's fine, except part of the reason why they're low turnover is they don't do anything on offense.
I mean, sure, but
like they don't, and that's a problem. I mean, when you have three of them out there on the floor, they don't do anything. Gillis does.
Yeah,
like he gets open, he shoots. No one out. Like Morton has 2 assists, but like he's not like getting into defenses and creating stuff the way you want him to. Caleb First isn't cannot find his rhythm right now. Miles Colvin is a freshman and he's playing like a freshman. Like at some point there needs to be some contribution, or it really goes haywire when Fletch is off.
Yeah.
Because he can cover a lot of those gaps, playmaking, shooting wise. But he's also such a liability on the defensive end right now. It's just, it's hard to not be a little concerned that this is looking like last year. A little bit.
You mean with everybody or just with Lawyer?
The season.
Oh, okay.
Because you go from looking great in the non-con.
Yeah.
Then you get into the Big Ten and all of a sudden familiar teams are playing harder. We'll touch on this. The bottom half of teams this year aren't going to be as bad as they were last year.
Yeah.
or the year before or ever in college basketball. So they're going to get challenged every night. And it's just real hard. And a lot of it is like, it's weird because like how much of this is because it wasn't a good Zach Edey game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean,
it's the only time we've seen it in like 2 years.
yeah, I mean, if Edie plays a normal game, if he gets 22 and 13 or 22 and 14,
Mm.
how much does that change everything else? It changes the way the defense has to play him. It changes open shots for other people. We don't know. But kudos to Nebraska. They absolutely took it to Purdue. I have one question before we take a break and kind of look at next things for Purdue. But do you think this game is an aberration? Or is this something that Purdue fans really should be worried about? I mean, with Purdue now 2 losses in the Big Ten and Wisconsin sitting at 0 still after beating Ohio State, do you think now your prediction of a 4-game Big Ten victory is in doubt? I mean, is this something we should worry about?
I don't think you should worry about it for the Big Ten. Maybe 4 games doesn't happen, but you're also like Purdue won it by 3 games with 5 losses last year.
Right.
They're going to lose on the road. Nebraska is a good basketball team. If I'm eating crow about anything, it's like that is a good basketball team. Tominaga is a problem.
He's a menace. He's a menace.
Because I'm still wearing the Hitman shirt today.
Nice.
So there's still a little here. Like I hate jump shooters that just chase a foul every time they shoot. They just fall.
Yeah, I mean that is annoying. The Reggie Miller,
annoying.
The Reggie Miller leg kick, or the
the
arm goes back.
It's like he's still whiny to me, but like, God, the shots he makes, that's ridiculous.
It was outrageous.
Just absolutely no conscience. Like you can't give him a half second with your hand down. It's just game over.
Yeah.
So like that's a real thing. Rink Mast is good. They're a big.
He was I think the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah.
Was his play on both ends. I mean, 18 points. Showing Edey up really on both ends of the floor, and that was incredible to me. I've never seen anybody do that to Zach Edey in the last 2 years.
So I think I would sum it up this way: Purdue's lost twice on the road. In each of those games, the opposing team had 3 guys have career nights. Yeah. In this one, it was Tominaga, Mast, and Wilcher. Against Northwestern, it was Barry, Langford, and
Bowie.
So like, it's a good sign that it takes teams their best to beat you. It's not good that you give those up.
Right. It's not good that you allow the best to come out of your opponent. Yeah.
So you have to find a way to take that away. I don't think Purdue is there yet as a team. If I have a question about the team, I don't know if they have it in them to take that away from teams.
Oof. I don't love the sound of that because
defense. I think they can outscore teams when they're on offense and still win those games.
Yeah.
I just don't know if this team is built in a way that they can take that stuff away from. I don't think we've seen it consistently enough to be like super optimistic that they do.
Yeah.
Like they win big games and like Edey dominates, but like this team has not. Their dominance is usually different than just like taking something away from teams. It's generally that teams can't keep up with them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. There we go. We're going to take a break, come back, look at Purdue's next opponent, kind of talk about what's going on the rest of college basketball, Big Ten especially. So we'll be right back with you, folks.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 each and every week of the college basketball season. We have a special offer that will be available starting on Tuesday, January 9th and running through Monday, February 12th, the morning after Super Bowl 58. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, in honor of the big game, you can use the bonus code FIELD158 and you'll get $158 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code 158. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD158 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create separate accounts in each state. It's easy, it's simple, it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the heart of the college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odd boosts, and my favorite, a nice juicy parlay boost. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Field 158.
And we are back. Casey and I have fueled ourselves with Coke Zero in the commercial break here. I've got my can. He's got his bottle. We're ready to go. So Purdue was not the only highly ranked team to lose over the last few days. It has been a regular killing field out there. Everybody is losing if you're ranked in the top 10. And it's going to make the rankings coming out Monday really bizarre. So what do we think is going on in college basketball? Are the middle teams in the middle just better? Are unranked teams better than they used to be? Or are teams that are in the top not as good as everybody else says they are?
You're a big comic book dork, right, Ledman?
I am. Yes, Marvel Comics, big dork.
So there is a confluence of universes combining together to make this weird basketball landscape this year.
Okay.
It's a combination of
kind of you're saying if anybody's a Marvel Comics fan, there are incursions of two worlds coming together, and then eventually enough of those occur, and we come up with basically a battle world, if you will, where there's pieces of all these worlds have come together to form their own world. Continue.
Battle world, love that. So this battle world exists of there's this floating COVID year out there. There are guys playing that are in their 6th year of college.
Yeah, they should be gone.
They should be gone. Not only are they playing, it's now free to transfer. So you are having all these teams that are able to grab these 5th, 6th year guys who are like grown men, adult basketball players.
Right.
Who have been through everything, who would normally you see a lot of plucky underling teams that do well at home or have this because they're battle tested and their guys get better because guess what, at 24 you're a lot better at 19, whether you're not 24-year-olds with less athleticism and skill is going to be better than most 19-year-olds.
Yeah. I mean, these are guys that would normally be playing overseas in Germany or Russia or the Czech Republic or something, and now they're over here playing against just 19-year-olds, like you said.
Right. So instead you got this fertile landscape for upsets because all these Nebraska just picked up a bunch of guys. They picked up a bunch of guys that would have been gone normally. You look at that roster and Rink Mast is, it's his 4th year, but that's just what he's been able to do. Pick up guys that have been, around for 4 or 5 years. So instead of having to fill out your roster with unknown freshmen, these guys are all battle tested. They've all been there. They know what's happening. They're good. They've developed skills. They've developed their body. These are all experienced college players that are ready. So it was hard to win already. It was hard not to get upset before when you were playing freshmen and teams that were hoping to have 7 guys that could stand. So all of a sudden the talent is just everywhere. There's a whole extra year of player.
Yeah.
So Lance Jones shouldn't be around.
No.
Purdue was just able to grab a 5th year guard who's lightning quick and all conference defense for 2 years. Teams, we're not used to seeing teams like that. Purdue's not the only one to do it. Purdue does it lighter than a lot of other teams. So
yeah,
there's just all this extra talent. And it's on top of that, there's no great team this year. Purdue looks, they did look like the most infallible out of all of them. And obviously they're not. Kansas has 4 good guys. They have 4 really good guys and they have no one else.
Yeah, and I
There's
mean
a,
they just lost. Tennessee just lost. Gonzaga has been just absolutely plummeting.
Houston lost.
Marquette just
Marquette
lost.
doesn't look good.
Houston lost.
So like,
Marquette lost to Butler, right?
yeah. So like, it's gonna be crazy this year. It's gonna be insane. So maybe that's why, like Minnesota, they're okay. They're good. They're
Yeah,
decent.
I mean they're better than I thought they'd be for sure.
I like it's wild how these teams have turned around, and like that's kind of just the expectation right now between transfers and like all this just an extra year of talent. It's wild.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Yeah.
that's quite it's like slowly crept in, but then like you've got like Malik Hall going to Michigan State. You've got Rutgers lost 2 recruits late that like went out of nowhere. Like it's just a wild world, and the teams don't make sense, and there's more talent, and the like upsets are already prevalent in college basketball. So it is
Right.
a wild year.
Yeah, and I mean in college basketball and basketball in general, one player can make so much of a difference. In college football, you saw what, Colorado and, Coach Prime is the key example of the transfer portal. And you bring in tons of guys and you're like, oh, they're clearly turn over the whole roster. They're going to be ready to go. They're going to be great. Started out great, ended terribly. Because there's a number of things in football. It's a lot harder to build a team in football because you rely so much on every unit working together. Whereas in basketball, if you find a superstar, if you find a guy who can shoot 40% from three, they can make a huge difference because there's only 5 guys on the court at the same time.
Unless you're
So you
Michigan
can,
State, you can still be bad.
well, yes, that's true. Um, so one guy can make a huge difference. And as you said, with the abundance of extra players with the COVID year, with the ability to free transfer, you can go out and you can scout and you can find somebody and he can come in and he can change your program. Um, it's not the Wild West. That's not the right term, but it is definitely a
Pretty
lot different.
wild.
It's a lot
The
different
wild
out there than it
Midwest.
was even, yes, the wild Midwest. That's the Big Ten. Uh, well, not anymore Midwest.
We
We
still
got
got Michigan.
Rutgers,
Got Michigan.
we got Maryland, not really the Midwest, but
Mm.
uh, it's just,
Does Maryland exist?
well, we were
Better
there.
crowd in Lincoln, Nebraska during a blizzard, by the way.
Yeah, that's not a good look for Maryland.
It's a fan base that had to like jump on board with Fred Hoiberg.
Yeah, that's
They
tough.
were able to
That's tough.
they were able to storm a court in a storm.
There you go. There you go. So now Purdue looking next, going or not going, they're returning home
Thank
to
goodness.
Mackey Arena. Yes, thank goodness. They've got Penn State.
Mhm.
Penn State, this is not your Micah Shrewsbury Penn State anymore. He
Mhm.
is off to Notre Dame. I can't even tell you the name of the Penn State coach if I'm being blunt.
Mike Rhodes, baby.
Sure. Yeah,
From
exactly who I would
VCU.
you could have given me 10 you could have given me 10 guesses. I don't think I would have gotten there. But do we obviously feel a little more comfortable because this one's at home. Paint Crew is back, so that will be a factor as well. Students are back in action, but
I am
I
gonna say
mean,
Purdue's gonna go undefeated at home.
okay. I mean
Very
that
confident in
wouldn't
that.
surprise me. They've done that a number of times, but so do you think Purdue gets things back together against Penn State because it's Penn State and because it's at home, or do you think there's actually things that they can fix? Like
Andrew Ledman,
is being at home and playing against Penn State going to cover up for the same
Mr.
problems?
Esquire, I present to you.
That's what they call me. Yeah, all the time.
Zach Edey might go for 40 and 20.
Okay. I mean, that'd be great.
As much as we're not used to Zach Edey being bad on a basketball court.
A basketball course. How many holes?
Ooh.
I guess just 2.
Yeah. He does want to get into golf.
I do they even make clubs for guys his size?
It's like you just make the shaft longer, Ledman.
I feel like those you got to special order those. I bet those are pricey.
Oh, yeah, you have to special. My clubs are special ordered, buddy. All clubs should be special ordered.
Okay. All right. Move on.
He is really not used to not being good on a basketball.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And Penn State is one of the worst rebounding teams in the country. They do not have size. They do not have weight. They do not have like heft. There's no heft.
Heft.
No heft.
How do you measure heft?
It's something you see
Oh, okay.
with your eyes, feel it. So I think Zach Edey is going to be particularly motivated to dominate this game. Like, it's been back-to-back games where Edey has not done much.
Yeah, he didn't look great against Illinois either. A lot of that was foul trouble, but he doesn't get in foul trouble, so it'd be interesting to see how he responds. We can't imagine having him having 3 bad games in a row.
Correct. I think he is going to shoot like 20 free throws, like 5 dunks, a lot of offensive rebounds, more offensive rebounds than defensive, maybe. Just, I expect him to be everywhere. I think there are some questions about Purdue. I think these last few games have, kind of forced that conversation. Not panicking about Purdue. I think they're still a very solid program. Normally this would have been the game I would be worried about as a trap game, because I come home. You say that because I think you don't know who's up next on the schedule.
Oh no, I know who is up next on the schedule. IU. Okay. Purdue goes to IU after they play Penn State.
So like rival on the road is going to take some
focus away.
Some focus. But when you get beat on the road like that, get back in.
Snaps you back in, yeah.
So I think this is going score-wise, it's going to say this is a get-right game. But like, let me ask you, what do you want to see? Who do you want to see have a good game? Because there's a lot of guys that need one, not just
Fletcher Lawyer. Mm-hmm. I want to see Fletcher because I know Zach Edey will be back. I know Zach Edey will lock back in. Fletcher Lawyer, I don't know, because he's only in his second year, and we're early in the second year. We want to see that big. I mean, yeah, but it's a long Big Ten season.
So
we got 15 games left. So
all you hear is about how long the road is. Long road.
So
multiple stops.
A lot of stops.
A lot of rest stops.
So I want to see Lawyer click back in on both ends of the court, because as you said in our last segment, everything opens up when Lawyer is good. And he just means so much to this team. I know that Edey will be back. I know that Edey will put it together. And I'm about 98, 99% sure Braden Smith is not going to, continue to have these same problems. So Fletcher Lawyer is the one I most want to see. Do you have a different answer?
I would like to see anyone besides Mason Gillis do something off the bench.
The bench, yes.
Like I would love to see Caleb First become a problem again.
Yeah.
There was a time last year where not only was he starting, I thought he was the third best player on the team at times. And this year
there have been games where he's not the third best guy on the bench.
No, he played like 7 minutes against Nebraska and wasn't good. I don't know. One has to wonder is that just diminishing returns from the lack of minutes for these guys?
I do wonder if that's part of it. I mean,
and Painter admits it, there's not enough minutes for them to be consistently good.
Yeah.
So what's the answer to that?
I don't think there is one, is the unfortunate truth. I mean, what are you going to cycle people in the starting lineup? You're going to say, Trey Kaufman-Renn, you start today. Caleb First, you start tomorrow. Mason Gillis, you start on Wednesday. I mean, I don't know if that's going to solve any problems.
Big picture, you could play them more, regardless of their production.
Sure, but I mean, whose minutes do you take away? That's the problem. It's not the answer is obvious. You play them more, but the question is, whose minutes do you take to put them on the court?
Maybe you don't care if Edey plays 35 a game. Maybe you don't care if Braden Smith plays 35 a game.
I mean,
maybe.
Hold on. I understand if you take out Edey, maybe you play Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5, you put in Gillis or First at the 4. But if you take out Braden Smith, how does that result you getting in Caleb First or Mason Gillis more minutes? How you working your lineup there?
But there's other guys on the bench that also need to play better.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good answer. I don't know if that's a thing that really helps, but does having a determined game plan of getting more minutes through the season, even if it costs you a couple games, does that help you in the long run?
Well, I mean, the hope is that everybody's fresher come March.
Right. And
Braden
everyone's
Smith
better.
played a ton of Braden Smith played a ton of minutes last year. And I think he was tired at the end of it. So if anybody has been, following you and I, listen to our old podcast for the last, 3 years, they know that year after year after year, you've been the more optimistic one about what Purdue can do long term in a season. And you've convinced me. I want to say two,
I'm a
maybe
bad
even
friend. Like, I'm not
you are
great.
terrible.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have not gambled on this advice.
Right. Good podcast host, not a good friend.
Yeah, it wasn't legal in Maryland.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd probably would have been broke. You've convinced me either 2 or 3 seasons in a row that Purdue was gonna make the Final Four or had a really good shot to make the Final Four. You've convinced me
Last
each
year
time.
for sure.
Yeah, last year for sure, and 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure also.
Yeah.
But
One could
this
argue
year
they
I
should have.
well, yeah. This year I didn't need convincing. This year I believe from the
Mhm.
beginning. Do you still believe, given what we've seen? I mean, I know we're only at 2 losses. We've seen some great victories. Do you believe that this Purdue team can still make the Final Four and should be a favorite to make the Final Four? I know that's 2 different questions, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I mean, yes, but am I more confident than the start of the season? No. I think Edie,
Even after all the big victories? I mean,
think
Arizona, Tennessee, Marquette, Gonzaga.
yeah, I'm just concerned that Edie's not playing better right now. I think it's been the worst 2-week stretch that he's had. And it still feels like a lot of these games are harder for the other team than Purdue, or it's harder for Purdue than the other team.
Yeah.
And that concerns me because I feel like that's, again, if you're talking about Purdue, it feels like the feelings are what you need. And I think that feeling is the one that persists in those tourney games and the weird games and the ones when they go lose to Nebraska. But I also think, like, if they come back in these next 6, like, they are playing the worst part of the Big Ten in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So could they run off another 7-game win streak and you're right back to it? I don't think Wisconsin matches up particularly well against Purdue.
And we get them twice.
Yeah, so I don't have a good answer because there's no good answer when you're talking about Purdue because these games come out of nowhere. They're not logical. Yeah. They exist and they happen. And I really do think that Lance Jones, there's those little moments where, he got a couple baskets in transition against Nebraska where it's just like, ooh, that kind of stuff didn't happen last year.
No.
But then he forces another one and gets blocked instead of kicking it out to a 3-pointer. So it's like, ooh, are we going to be able to depend on this? It's so hard to know because they've not earned that trust.
Oh no, and not just this season, but forever. But I'm a believer. I've seen what this team can do when they're at their best. I've seen the game against Arizona. I've seen believe Ted Lasso. I've seen the vast majority of that game against Illinois where they just looked absolutely incredible.
Do you want Lawyer or Heidi to start?
I think right now I'll still stick with Lawyer.
I'm not sure Lawyer's not better off the bench.
I would take Trey Kaufman-Renn out of the starting lineup and I would insert Mason Gillis.
Does that fix anything though?
I think what it fixes is, as much as Trey Kaufman-Renn and Zach Edey have looked good together, it's only been for about a game and a half. Okay. I think there's a lot of potential in it, but I think I would rather have Trey Kaufman-Renn as my backup 5 when Edey goes off the floor.
So what about when Braden Smith goes off the floor? Wouldn't you feel better if Fletcher came in during that time?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, are you having him be the secondary ball handler, and you're saying
Mhm.
Lance Jones is still in the game?
I mean, you have to have a point guard.
Well, that's what I mean.
It's either Morton or Jones, depending on whatever.
I tell you,
I feel better with Jones, Morton, and Lawyer than Heidi, Morton, and Jones.
I would agree with that.
So I think that's a more natural off the bench rotation. I get it's really hard to do that to Lawyer,
Yeah.
but Heidi's like ceiling is off the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been incredible.
He's a really good shooter. He's big. I thought he stepped up again against Nebraska. Like Tominaga made a couple shots. Wilcher drew that foul on him, made a couple shots, but like Heidi is like in people's business and he's big.
Yeah. And he's getting better fast.
Mhm.
He's getting better fast the more minutes he plays. So I think he is a guy you do need to play more and more because it'll pay dividends as we get toward March and hopefully April. So, I think Painter's got a lot of questions about lineups and minutes, and there's a reason he gets paid the big bucks. So we'll see what he comes up with after watching this game film. So I think that's going to do it for us. We're pretty long here for the night. Lot to talk about. I mean, it's a pretty frustrating loss. There's always going to be questions, but
Purdue going to be number 1 next week?
Oh no, I don't think so. I think
1, 2,
I think-
3, and 5 lost.
I know, but I think so many people were waiting for Purdue to lose.
I don't know. Wait, for who though?
UConn didn't lose, right? Because
they
that's
did
my
not.
guess. That's my guess. Who's number 1 is going to be UConn, because they won it all last year. It's not that they've got like an incredible resume right now, but when every team in front of you loses, it's the easy thing to do to say, oh, the team that didn't lose leapfrogs to the front, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think Purdue winds up number 2 or number 3. What about you? Assuming they beat Penn State, which
UConn's
is
best win. Neutral floor, North Carolina.
Hey, look, I'm not arguing they deserve to be number 1. I'm just saying.
I think the fact so many have lost in the top 5, I think it keeps Purdue there. I think UConn will move to number 2.
I'll be surprised.
Purdue gets to play again. So when they beat Penn State by 35, they're going to beat Penn State by 35.
I mean, I think they're going to beat Penn State, but I think 35 might be a little much.
Okay, 33.
Okay. All right. Hey, look, listen.
Are there Penn State fans out there? Do they hibernate during the winter?
I've been to a Penn State basketball game as a fan. Not a lot of action.
Look, the Pallister was awesome.
We stormed their court when we were in college because
y'all don't have respect for yourselves.
Purdue won the Big Ten.
Talking about storming Penn State.
Purdue won the Big Ten.
You don't get to storm a court if you're the majority of fans there.
Well, there were only it was like 30 Painter people.
Yes, you can. That's how it works.
Yeah. So you've okay. Yeah. Purdue not beating Penn State by 35. Maybe I'll do the Greg Waddell bet with you. If they do win by 35, I'll eat 140 soft Chips Ahoy cookies in a 24-hour period.
You just want any excuse to tell your wife, hey, I have to buy all these Chips Ahoy.
I have to eat.
Do we need to make a bet
cookies
every game on the way out just so you get one wrong?
I gotta.
What are the terms? What are the terms? Okay, yeah, we'll do for every 10 points, 1 Chips Ahoy thing.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me. What does that mean?
One case for every Chips Ahoy.
Oh no, I'm not playing that game. Not playing that game. Maybe we'll talk off the air. We'll figure out a long-term season bet for that. But right now, I don't think we've put enough thought into it. So hey, there's a teaser for your next episode. So we are part of the Field of 68. Make sure to like, rate, review, subscribe, give us some comments. Send a crow to Casey so he can eat it after that whopping we took by Nebraska. So, keep
we didn't really talk about that game, but privately and on Twitter.
True. Yeah. So there you go, folks. Purdue versus Penn State this weekend. We'll come at you again over the weekend so we can talk IU in preparation of that one. Till next time, folks.
Let us know if there's anyone you want us to get on for the IU game. Like, who do you think of when it's Purdue IU? Just saying.
Till next time, folks.